The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares rose on Wednesday following reports that Israel may be planning to attack Iranian nuclear facilities. CNN recently reported that Israel could be preparing for a strike on Iran's nuclear sites, citing unnamed intelligence officials. This also pushed oil prices higher amid fears it may disrupt oil supplies. Both Taiwan's TAIEX and South Korea's KOSPI rose by more than 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, meanwhile, added 0.99%, while India's Nifty and Indonesia's JKSE both climbed 0.87%. Australia's ASX 200 rose 0.57%. Japan's Nikkei 225 was the only major index to decline, slipping 0.31%. In the currency market, the US dollar weakened against the Japanese yen, dropping 0.57%. The greenback was flat against the Hong Kong dollar with a slight uptick. The Australian dollar strengthened against the US dollar, rising 0.47%. Meanwhile, the US dollar slipped against the Singapore dollar by 0.32%, the South Korean won by 0.55%, and the Thai baht by 0.57%. Gold and oil prices advanced. Gold rose 0.57%. Both West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude inched up by nearly 2%. In contrast, Dubai crude edged down 0.11%. In the crypto market, Bitcoin gained 0.53% and Ethereum jumped more than 3%. U.S. President Donald Trump struggles to rally support from fellow Republicans for his sweeping tax cut bill during a high-stakes visit to Congress. In what he called a meeting of love on Capitol Hill, Trump warned House Republicans against making further changes to the bill, especially proposals that would make it harder for low-income Americans to access Medicaid. He also urges lawmakers to avoid removing deductions for state and local taxes, a key issue for moderate Republicans in high-tax states like New York and California. The tax bill seeks to cut tax rates while tightening eligibility for Medicaid, a health program that covers over 70 million Americans.
That was a meeting of love. Let me tell you, that was love in that room. There was no shouting. I think it was a meeting of love. There were a couple of things that we talked about specifically where some people felt a little bit one way or the other, not a big deal. And I covered them. It wasn't so much a speech. I covered certain points. And I think I'd be very surprised.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio clashes with Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen during a Senate hearing amid escalating pressures on the Trump administration's foreign policy strategy. The exchange turned heated as Van Hollen slammed Rubio over Washington's failure to curb Israel's military operations in Gaza and its inability to halt Russia's war in Ukraine, as Trump had promised during his presidential campaign.
You know that for 78 days, the Netanyahu government did not allow a scrap of food to enter Gaza to reach over 2 million civilians. 57 children have died from malnutrition so far, and more than 14,000 children are in imminent danger of dying of starvation. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear in the days to come.
Mr. Chairman,
who you went to
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You
Secretary
had your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
The confrontation underscores growing bipartisan tensions over U.S. foreign policy, with potential ramifications for global aid flows, security partnerships, and regional stability in Europe and the Middle East. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells a Senate subcommittee that his office has revoked possibly thousands of visas, citing national interest and foreign policy concerns. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. has canceled hundreds of visas nationwide, including those held by some lawful permanent residents. The move is based on a 1952 law that grants the Secretary of State sweeping authority to deport individuals whose presence is deemed detrimental to U.S. foreign policy. The statement has raised concerns among foreign nationals and investors, particularly those in the U.S. on long-term visas for work, business, or study. Senator Jeff Merkley questioned the scope of Rubio's interpretation, but Rubio defended the position, stating that a visa is a privilege, not a right. For the Philippines, which sends thousands of students, workers, and executives to the U.S. each year, the development could signal heightened scrutiny for future applications and entry renewals. And Chinese President Xi Jinping is urging stronger support for China's manufacturing sector, citing its central role in modernizing the world's second-largest economy. During a visit to a bearing factory in Luoyang City, Xi praised the firm's technological investments and stressed the need for China to develop core manufacturing technologies independently. He also called for greater investment in the real economy and stronger collaboration between industry, universities, and research institutes to build a highly skilled workforce. The factory now supplies over 40% of wind turbine main bearings in China, underscoring Beijing's push for self-reliance in strategic industries. The Israeli Foreign Ministry vows not to give in to foreign pressure as international criticisms over its military operations in Gaza continues to grow. The statement comes after the United Kingdom put trade talks with Israel on hold. In a social media post, the ministry said it is the British government's prerogative if it chooses to harm its own economy. London also summoned Israel's ambassador with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, saying he was horrified by the escalation. Last week, Israel launched a new phase of military operations in Gaza, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring plans to assert control over the entire territory. Alphabet's Google unveils a new set of artificial intelligence features, signaling its latest push to stay ahead in the global tech race. At its annual I/O conference in California, Google announced that users in the United States can now switch search into AI mode, allowing computer-generated responses to complex queries instead of traditional links. The tech giant also showed off smart glasses that can translate foreign languages in real time, with text appearing right in front of the user's eyes. Google is teaming up with designers Warby Parker and Gentle Monster to develop headsets powered by its new Android XR platform, targeting the expanding augmented reality market.
Starting today, Gemini Live capabilities are free and rolling out across Android and iOS. Deep Research and Canvas are getting their biggest updates yet. There's a new agent mode coming for multi-step actions that you heard about earlier. We're introducing Gemini in Chrome to help you navigate the web, and you can create stunning images and videos with sound using the new Imagen 4 and Veo 3 models. It's all coming together in the Gemini app as we work to deliver the most personal, proactive, and powerful AI assistant.
Honda Motors is scaling back its electric vehicle investments as global EV demand shows signs of cooling and is now ramping up its focus on hybrids. CEO Toshihiro Mibe says the company is reducing its electrification and software budget through 2030 from $69 billion to about $48 billion. Honda now plans to sell up to 2.3 million hybrids by the end of the decade, with 13 new hybrid models rolling out starting in 2027. Earlier this month, the automaker also delayed a $10.7 billion EV manufacturing project in Canada by 2 years. The strategic shift underscores growing uncertainty in the global EV market as high battery costs, charging infrastructure gaps, and changing consumer preferences force automakers to rebalance their long-term plans. And we're taking a short break. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. You're watching Business Brief. The country's mounting plastic problem is pushing businesses to rethink waste recovery. Sujin Kim is in Taguig City with a possible solution. Go ahead, Sujin.
Robert, the Philippines continues to grapple with the plastic crisis, with compliance remaining low. As of 2025, only 20 to 30% of companies are meeting the required recovery targets under the Extended Producer Responsibility Act, or EPR. The government has already raised the target to 40% this year, with plans to gradually increase it to 80% by 2028. According to Plastic Bank, the country generates over 2.7 million metric tons of plastic waste every year, equivalent to 24 kilos per Filipino, much coming from fast-moving consumer goods. To avoid penalties and stay on track, more companies are partnering with Plastic Bank, a Canadian social fintech that operates on a circular economy model with a network of 260 collection points across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and has registered over 22,000 collectors nationwide. Each metric ton of collected and recycled plastic translates to 1 plastic credit. Under the platform, collectors receive 10 to 15 pesos per kilo, plus non-cash benefits like grocery credits, health insurance, and education support. Transactions are tracked using blockchain technology, and funds are transferred instantly via GCash. Major partner brands include SC Johnson, Coca-Cola, Revlon, 3M, Watsons, Toyota, and Henkel, all of which buy plastic credits to offset their footprint rather than build costly in-house waste management systems. Plastic Bank's model also benefits the local economy. Plastic waste collected from communities is processed domestically and then sold to international brands like Windex or Duck in North America, generating US dollar inflows and boosting domestic manufacturing capacity. But the system is not without obstacles. In many provinces, logistics costs exceed the market value of waste materials. Insufficient access to crushers and standardized machineries prevent scaling. Now, stakeholders are pushing for public-private partnerships and blended finance mechanisms to bridge the gap, combining grants, low-interest loans, and private capital to expand local infrastructure. Plastic Bank is currently developing a loan feature that will allow users to borrow against future collections. This fintech component will function like a microcredit system, offering advances based on collection history, providing critical financial flexibility for low-income participants. And those are latest updates from Taguig City. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Meanwhile, over 400 Chinese nationals may be working in the Philippines without updated permits. The Department of Information and Communications Technology is now investigating a Facebook post by journalist Ramon Tulfo, who claims there are 400 Chinese nationals working at Dito Telecommunity, but they entered the country with mere tourist visas. Tulfo added that the Chinese could be spies for Beijing, and their presence could endanger the country's national security. The ICT spokesperson Renato Paraiso said they plan to coordinate with the Bureau of Immigration as the agency's cybercrime investigation and coordinating center looks into the matter. Davao businessman Dennis Uy's Dito CME Holdings Corporation controls majority of Dito Telecommunity. State-owned China Telecom owns 40%. A memorandum of understanding has been sealed among the University of the Philippines, the Department of Budget and Management, and the Department of Public Works and Highways to develop a system for quick monitoring of government projects. Project DIME, or Digital Information for Monitoring and Evaluation, will provide real-time updates on public projects. This digital tool will show who's building what, how fast, and how much it costs. The DPWH will provide information on infrastructure projects. UP, through its nationwide operational assessment of hazard center, will add data related to disaster risk reduction. The goal is to leverage available technology for greater accountability in every taxpayer-funded project and meet growing public demand for open governance. Jollibee Foods Corporation plans to further store rollouts in the Southeast Asia. This is even the company reported a nearly 10% decline in its first quarter net income to 2.41 billion pesos due to higher non-operating expenses. The Bilyonaryo founder Tony Tan, Kaktiong's fast food chain, says it will continue to grow its store network in Southeast Asia as part of its 5-year strategy to triple attributable net income. System-wide sales from Jollibee's operation in the region, excluding the Philippines, rose by nearly 30% in the first quarter. The company is operating in Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei. Meanwhile, strong bank profits signal resilience in the Philippine financial sector despite slower economic growth and easing inflation. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas shows the banking industry's net income rose to 101.91 billion pesos in the first quarter, up 10.6% from 92.11 billion in the same period last year. The gains were driven by a rise in interest income, which grew to 395.99 billion pesos as banks benefited from higher rates and stronger lending activity. Non-interest income also climbed to 60.67 billion pesos from 52.98 billion a year earlier, reflecting growth in fees, trading, and other banking services. The latest figures come ahead of expected monetary easing by the BSP, which could pressure margins but support broader credit growth in the second half. The Bank of the Philippine Islands, or BPI, plans to borrow billions of pesos. The company aims to raise 5 billion pesos through the issuance of Supporting Inclusion, Nature Growth, or SINAG bonds. This is the first tranche of its newly launched 200 billion peso bond and commercial paper program. The peso-denominated fixed-rate bonds have a year-and-a-half tenor and has an interest rate of 5.85% per annum, and it is payable every quarter. The public offer period is ongoing until May 30, while the bonds will be used and listed on the Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation on June 10. The BPI says it will be used to fund eligible projects under its sustainable funding frameworks. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry wants to see less bureaucracy in the government with the entry of new faces in Congress. In an interview on the Bilyonaryo News Channel's Business 360, PCCI Chairman George Barcelon said, micro, small, and medium enterprises see no real improvement so far with regards to ease of doing business.
We still have a lot of unnecessary compliance that are asked of the business sectors. And I would like to suggest, Secretary Ines Perez, that they be given more people, in a way, budget to help the private sector and remove some of the unnecessary compliances that it's imposed on businesses. Some of the key government agencies like Bureau of Customs and BIR, they continue, maybe that they find it necessary, but it's taking a lot of effort from the private sector to comply with what they're asking for.
Aside from this, the PCCI is also calling on the new legislators to address malnutrition among the youth, improve productivity in the agriculture sector, enhance quality of education, and provide more investments in the manufacturing industry. The Philippines slips to 64th place out of 100 countries in the 2025 Global Startup Ecosystem Index, its fourth straight year of decline. The country falls from 60th last year as it continues to struggle with gaps in infrastructure, regulation, and access to funding. The Philippines scores just 2.24 in the latest index, highlighting the need for stronger public-private support to scale innovation and attract venture capital. We're taking a short break. Business Brief will be right back. Philippine shares rebound in the third trading day of the week. The PSE index ended higher by 0.6% to close at 63.75, finishing the day as the third best performer in Asia. Majority of the day's sectoral indices ended in the green, with mining and oil rising the most at nearly 5%. Advancers outpaced decliners 107 to 81. Total value turnover reached 7.6 billion pesos. The day's most active stocks ended mixed, with BPI rising the most at more than 4%. China Bank, on the other hand, dropped the most at more than 6%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 55.60 against the greenback, strengthening from previous close of 55.63. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.